I'm going to go through and talk about the metals that you should be familiar with on the periodic table. It's really not necessarily to learn all the names and symbols of all of these elements because a lot of them are just not very commonly used, but some of the ones that I think are most important. I'm going to start with group 1, and really most of the metals in group 1 you should be familiar with. Lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, and cesium. All of these are solids at room temperature, and they are all active metals. And as a group, group 1A is called the alkali metals because a lot of their compounds will be basic or alkaline in solution. And again, they're very active metals, and in fact, later in this module, I have some videos for you to watch of how active they are. They all react with water at room temperature. In group 2, you should also know all of these metals, and beryllium is not exactly a metal. It's kind of in between being a metal and a non-metal, and it's not quite as common. But starting with magnesium, calcium, strontium, barium, and radium. Calcium, of course, is important for bones. Magnesium is also important in the body, and substances like Rolaids and Maalox will have both magnesium and calcium in the compounds there. Strontium is not as common. Barium compounds are toxic, but barium sulfate is often used in GI scans because the barium sulfate is not soluble, but it allows the x-rays to see where it is. So people will either drink or have barium enemas, and you will be able to take a picture of the GI tract. Radium, the last one, the only forms of it are radioactive, so you may see that used in the radiation labs in the hospital. Jumping over to group 3, aluminum is the most important element in that group to learn. Gallium actually has such a low melting point, it melts in your hand. And in group 4, tin and lead, notice their symbols are not similar to their names. In group 5, we have bismuth. And I will mention the one that is in group 6, which is polonium. Several years ago, a Russian spy was poisoned in England with polonium, and it was really very difficult to detect. They didn't figure that out until he had almost died. These are called main group elements. I'll also want you to learn some names of some of the other metals, and these are called the transition elements. And they are in this center part of the periodic chart. And some of the ones that should be familiar to you are titanium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, and zinc. And especially these metals in this group are metals that you may have heard of. They're commonly found as elements rather than, for example, sodium, which is so reactive that you never find elemental sodium. You're always dealing with a sodium compound. In the row below that, technetium, I chose that one. The only forms of it are all radioactive. It's the first synthetic element that was discovered, but it is used in bone scans and some other places in the hospital. Also, silver and cadmium are well-known elements. And in the row below that, we have tungsten, which is the filaments in light bulbs. osmium, which is used in electron microscopy. Iridium, platinum, and gold are all precious metals. This is because they are very non-reactive. And mercury, which is a unique metal, because mercury is the only metal that is a liquid at room temperature. So that's pretty unique. And we also have what we call inner transition metals. And these are our largest metals. And there are a few of those I would like you to be familiar with. Thorium, uranium, and plutonium all can be used to make nuclear weapons, and all can be used to make nuclear power in a power plant. Uranium and plutonium are the ones that are most used. And americium is a synthetic element, but you'll actually find this in smoke detectors. Plutonium is also a synthetic element. All elements above bismuth, all elements that are larger than bismuth, are all radioactive. There are no stable forms of any of these elements. So anything that has an atomic number larger than 83 will be radioactive. So these are the metals that I think it is important to know. All of these metals are solids except for mercury.